midterm elections, voters in D.C. voted overwhelmingly to legalize recreational marijuana. Now, of course, D.C. was not the only part of the United States that has decided to do this. Alaska decided to do it. Washington has decided to do it. Colorado has decided to do it. We have a bunch of states that have decided to legalize medicinal marijuana as well. Well, it was all great news until a Republican representative in Congress by the name of Andy Harris got involved. Now, Andy Harris realized that Congress actually has the ultimate oversight over the District of Columbia, meaning that if the voters in the area have approved a referendum, it doesn't really matter. If Congress is not in favor of that referendum, they could actually overrule. And that's exactly what they did in this case. It turns out that they are now proposing legislation that would strike down the legalization of recreational marijuana, even though 70% of voters in D.C. have approved it. Now, let me give you the details. Congress retains the right to strike down just about any decision the district makes on its own behalf, and during negotiations over the federal budget this week, it did exactly that. Late Monday, congressional aides had floated the possibility that the spending deal would include a provision sought by conservative House Republicans to block the voter-approved measure. And not only will the rider block legalization, the Post reports, the Washington Post, it may also reverse the decriminalization bill Mayor Vincent Gray signed into law earlier this year, which made pot possession punishable only by $25. Oh. What is it about this guy? Why does this Republican representative in Congress want to continue the prohibition of marijuana, especially when voters in the District of Columbia voted overwhelmingly to legalize it? Well, all you have to do is, first of all, look at who's funding him, right? That's the real reason. But the reason he gave to the public and to the press is a little different. Let me read you his statement. Relaxing marijuana laws clearly leads to more teenage drug use. It should be intuitively obvious to everyone that if you legalize marijuana for adults, more children will use marijuana because the message that it's dangerous will be blunted. Good word there. Good word. It's just like how if you legalize heroin, I'm going to run off to the nearest drug dealer and buy heroin, right? Because I've been dying to do heroin, and as soon as you legalize it, I'm going to do it. No. If you look at the numbers, what he's saying is not true at all. We have statistics. We have a Gallup poll.
I was going to say, did he provide a link in his statement? I bet he didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's look at a Gallup poll. According to Gallup, marijuana use among 18 to 29-year-olds has fallen 20% since 1985. Reformed drug laws have not resulted in an epidemic of marijuana use. You guys already knew that.
Let me devil's advocate this.
Blunt it. It'll be blunted.
Let me blunt this a little bit. Isn't it possible that we don't know yet, because we're just seeing Colorado and Washington, and do you think, Gina, as someone who medically needs marijuana,
thank you very much,
badly, that there is ever, don't you think more people are using it in your social group here since
honestly,
it's been big legally, or no?
Not only do I really don't, but apparently this guy was born 65, because everybody knows that the more challenge you make something, the more somebody wants to do it. And now that, people have been able to get weed a little more freely in LA, it's not that big of a deal. People are just kind of losing interest in it, anecdotally speaking.
Right. And look, the argument that I would make is that he doesn't even believe his own statement or his own reasoning for the prohibition of marijuana, right? Because the reality is he's getting a lot of money from pharmaceutical companies, and pharmaceutical companies have a vested interest to ensure that marijuana is not legal. Because if it is legal, then all of a sudden you might consider, putting those other prescription painkillers away and focusing more on an herbal drug like marijuana.
But I'm surprised they're not looking more to the future and bastardizing and ruining that too. Because we'll have plenty of ads, I'm sure, once this is legalized and everybody stops embarrassing themselves and running around for no reason. And it'll be like, ask your doctor if marijuana is right for you.
Right.
Side effects may include munchies, but you'll be fine.
I would argue that the reason why pharmaceutical companies are not jumping onto that is because it's not going to be as lucrative as some of the pills that they've created, right? Because think about it. If you want to grow marijuana, you can grow marijuana on your own.
Right.
I mean, pharmaceutical companies will have to go through leaps and bounds to
you can't grow Cialis.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let me talk to you a little bit about his political contributors. His biggest contributor is the health industry, and among his top 3 biggest donors is the pharmaceutical company Emergent, Biosolutions, headquartered in Rockville, Maryland. And of course, they have created a drug for those who are suffering from, some of the side effects from chemotherapy. It helps them deal with pain. It helps them deal with appetite. Basically, all of the things that marijuana has been utilized for, this drug can also help you with, but of course it comes with a number of side effects as well. And it's also very lucrative for this pharmaceutical company. They don't want to legalize marijuana. They're paying these politicians to ensure that they continue prohibiting marijuana. And it's sick to know that it works out that way, because there's no question about it. Marijuana is not addictive in the same sense that some of these pain prescription pills are. Right?
And in terms of fatalities, I mean, everybody knows that you can die quite easily of alcohol poisoning, of extended alcohol use, whatever. You can get Korsakoff syndrome, all these crazy things that happen to you. And as far as I know, you would have to smoke all of the marijuana in the world for you to die from it, if that's possible. I'm sure I'm going to blow up with tweets going, you can, but you know what I mean.
We've done a story about how much marijuana you have to smoke within like 5 minutes in order to die of an overdose.
And don't get me wrong, you'll feel like you're going to die, but you're not really going to die.
Right.
And,
Go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking, you gave the only other possible explanation for why he's doing this, because it's always money or votes. And I assumed it was going to be another one of those, like, I still don't totally believe that the people who would vote for me and who would want me to retain this position want this, so I just got to look like the moral good guy. Or he's like every other, protesting too much and then doing crystal meth with a gay hooker in his car. And that's usually the reason. We've talked about that a million times.
Yeah.
But instead of votes this time, it's money.
It's always, I feel like the majority of time it has to do with money.
He's an extremely conservative member of Congress, and he won a primary in the Maryland legislature to get a seat in the Maryland legislature, largely because his Republican conservative opponent derailed a bill to ban partial birth abortion. So, a guy was like a moderately reasonable Republican who thought maybe, I think maybe leave it just up to the doctors. No, we got to get rid of that guy. He's insane. So he beat a guy, by the way, he won his seat by beating a guy named Boozer. He's an anesthesiologist, so he drugs people professionally.
Interesting.
Yeah, that sounds like a good person to marry.
He seems like a lot of fun. Right after the district voted 68% to allow this recreational use of marijuana, he said he would use all resources available to a member of Congress to stop this action. So in this day and age, especially for a Republican, in favor of small government and local control, 68%, 7 out of 10 people, and he's like, I'm one guy out of 435 members of Congress, and I will do everything in my power to prevent the local will of the people. Just because there's some arbitrary nonsense set up in the Constitution that the district is federalized land and therefore belongs to no state and there's no representation there. But they're now more than 600,000 residents of the district, just the district, not counting the suburbs where of course there are many more, but those people are either in Maryland or Virginia. But here are 600,000 people without representation in Congress. Republicans should be outraged by this, outraged that there are 600,000 people. But that state would elect a Democratic member of Congress and send 2 Democratic senators to the Senate, so they got no interest in D.C. becoming a state. But why not, Andy Harris, you hideous hypocrite? At a bare minimum, let them have their weed. They voted for it. They want it.
Here's why. This is why. Look at his top donors. Health professionals.
Oh, there it is.
Almost $320,000. I mean, that's why. So he doesn't care about being a hypocrite. He's worried about who's padding his pockets.
He's got a lot of people in his corner. Look at that.
He is definitely in favor of big government when it suits his purpose.